My name is Harper Lane, and the night I went to surprise my husband with champagne for his promotion at Northline Capital, I opened the door to his office and watched him kiss his boss, Veronica Hale, like I was the intern who forgot to knock. The lights were low, the blinds half drawn, and the city looked poured into glass, expensive and untouchable. I was holding a bottle we couldn't really afford, ribbon crooked, card tucked under my thumb. I heard him say, "We did it," and her voice answer, soft and managerial, "Our future." My legs went cold so fast I thought the floor was vented. He pulled back first, already spinning. "Harper," he said, like I'd materialized incorrectly. Veronica didn't flinch. She smoothed her mouth with 2 fingers, the kind of woman who does everything efficiently, then stepped away from him like he was an item she'd finished inventorying. On the credenza behind them sat a second glass, beaded and waiting. His new title glowed on a plaque, Marcus Reed, Vice President Strategy. Her lipstick shade was a surgical red, no apology in it. I remember thinking how clean everything was, the carpet, the air, the betrayal. He tried to call it celebratory, the way a toddler calls glitter a little mess. He said pressure and champagne and caught up in the moment. Veronica said I'd misread context, that great partnerships require trust, and looked at me like she was coaching an employee through a performance review reaction. I put the bottle down because my hands were trembling, because I didn't want to drop proof of how certain I'd been that love meant showing up. I stared at the glass with condensation and wondered when our marriage had learned to breathe without me. Here was what I can promise you. I will tell you the whole story, from scrappy beginnings at a second-hand table to the night a promotion turned into a swap-out. You will see how ambition uses manners to hide its teeth. You will see every receipt, every keycard log, every off-site that wasn't really about slides. And you will tell me if you've ever been replaced by someone's ladder. Because that's what this is. A ladder pushed through a house. A job title jammed where a vow should be. Veronica wiped her mouth, made eye contact like a memo, and said, "You weren't supposed to see this until Monday. New York taught me the difference between ambition and appetite. Ambition builds, appetite devours. I arrived with 2 suitcases, a portfolio of scrappy freelance jobs, and a habit of saying yes to deadlines that scared me. I was a designer at first, because I loved how a brand can turn chaos into coherence, typography as scaffolding, color as an argument you don't have to shout. Rent was a dare. Hope wore sneakers. My aunt, Lila Monroe, the kind of woman who irons contracts like shirts, let me crash 3 months and charged me in chores and lectures. "Protect yourself on paper," she'd say, clipping coupons and clauses with the same scissors. Marcus Reed entered sideways, at a ramen place where steam made strangers look honest. He was numbers with charm, an analyst whose jokes were neat and his spreadsheets cleaner. "I love honest margins," he said on date 2, like he was flirting with a ledger. We built a life out of thrifted furniture and stubborn optimism. Our couch had a rip we covered with a blanket that pretended to be a design choice. Our table was second-hand oak, heavy as a promise. We ate cheap and tipped well. We argued about playlists and reconciled with dumplings. The city either makes you co-authors or roommates. Marriage taught us which. I freelanced until a midtown brand house poached me. My boss said I designed like a patient architect and fought like a polite storm. I learned budgets, pitches, the art of saying no with language that sounds like later. Marcus learned Northline Capital, a private equity firm that turned companies into math. He sounded proud, then important, then tired. He wore the hours like a sport coat. I kissed him across hallways and said, "Stay human." He said, "After Q2, Aunt Lila kept me literate. She taught me how to hem skirts and contracts, how to align seams and signatures. A clean line is a legal argument," she'd say, pinning fabric, tapping clauses. When we married, tiny ceremony, rooftop string lights trying their best, she gave us cake stands and a template post-nup. "For later," she said, not ominous, just precise. We laughed and filed it with passports and lease copies because we were in love and administrative. We had our rituals. Thursday night was cheap wine and calendar triage. Sundays were laundry and a walk through neighborhoods we couldn't afford yet. I learned the names of doormen on Marcus's route. He learned which coffees on my street were a waste of 6. Ambition felt like a shared joke. Appetite like a managed pet. We said we'd know when either got out. Then Northline dangled a title. Vice President, Strategy. It rode into our apartment on language like impact and runway and seat at the table. Marcus's eyes glittered like a skyline at blue hour. He started staying later, speaking in we, as if the company had adopted him. He said Veronica Hale, Senior Vice President, a legend with a jawline, was investing in him. He said mentor and sponsor. I heard gravity. She wants me in the room, he said. Be in ours, I murmured, half joke, half instruction. Money got a little easier. Time got a lot harder. We bought nicer towels and saw each other less. I hit an internal promotion, brand lead, finally owning campaigns end to end, while he practiced smiling through exhaustion. I sent him memes. He sent me deck screenshots. He started saying phrases like optics and bandwidth when we talked about dinner. I started scheduling kisses. It's funny what you normalize when the future promises to reimburse you. Aunt Lila raised an eyebrow. Ambition is a ladder. Marriage is a floor, she said. Don't try to climb what should hold you. I promised we were fine. She handed me a pen anyway. The night he came home glowing, he kissed me like a commercial and said, if I land this promotion, everything changes. For us. He meant bonuses, vacations, a dishwasher that didn't make confessions at midnight. I chose to hear generosity over omen. I set the table, straightened the thrift store runner that pretended to be designer, and pictured a life where the ladder and the floor respected each other. The city hummed, indifferent, a fair judge. I poured wine, lifted my glass, and said the thing you say when you want love to keep holding. To us. He clinked and smiled at a horizon I couldn't see yet. Success started smelling like burnt coffee and late elevators. Marcus wore key cards like dog tags and learned Northline cycles the way sailors learn tides. Veronica Hale took him under her wing, the kind of wing that casts a shadow across your marital calendar. She was the senior vice president who made problems sit. Her emails were clean. Her meetings ended on time. Her praise felt like stock that might split. Marcus glowed in it. He said she noticed how he translated messy markets into digestible slides. He said she said he had executive calm. I watched him practice it on me. Team drinks multiplied. Off-sites sprouted on weekends. Urgent? I'd text on Sunday afternoon, and he'd reply, You are. But so is Q4, a line charming enough to make me forget I was a calendar entry. He started sending late-night selfies from an empty office, tie loosened, city grid behind him like graph paper. He said he was building a future for us. I believed him because believing is the cheapest coping mechanism joy ever invented. Tasha Nguyen, my best friend and human firewall, didn't buy the romance. She works in data privacy. She treats red flags like overtime. Boundary creep, she said, chewing fries at a diner that doesn't care about your brand. Mentorship is coffee. Sponsorship is seats. Late-night rides and urgent Sundays belong to appetite. I said he was close to a big win. She said, he's close to a woman who thinks compliance is for other people. Veronica appeared in stories the way storms do, first as weather, then as an event. She laughed at Marcus's jokes, apparently, and assigned him the kind of projects that get discussed at performance calibrations. She traveled with him to an off-site near the river, came back with language like synergy and alignment, the vaguest synonyms for shiny trouble. He said I'd love her. She's direct, like Lila, he assured me. Zero fluff. I pictured a person who arranges men like chess, and smiled politely. I tried to meet the schedule where it lived. I dropped surprise lunches. I aligned my late nights with his. I built a campaign on a deadline thick enough to hide inside. Did it help? Sometimes. Did I start sleeping with one ear tuned to the elevator? Yes. Anxiety isn't romance, but it does rehearse intimacy. Then there were the pings. Slack messages after midnight with emojis that tried too hard. "You're a machine," she'd send. He'd reply, "Just trying to keep up with you." I saw a thread once when he left his laptop open. "Sunday deck?" she asked at 8:11 p.m. "On it," he answered, adding a winky face I hated with a pure and ancient honesty. I told myself corporate flirting is theater with lighting, nothing else. Expenses started telling stories. My brand brain knows how receipts confess. Bar names, timestamps, the shape of a night. I found a slip in his pocket while emptying the laundry. Hotel bar, downtown, 2 cocktails, 1 charged to Hale Suite. I set it on the dresser. He said it was a post-off site debrief, the team stopped by. Room service is faster than lobby service. He talked fast and smiled slow. I asked why he didn't say Veronica instead of Hale. He said brevity. I said conscience. Aunt Lila invited us to dinner and watched Marcus with the squint of a woman measuring more than hem length. "You're thin," she told him. "Stress is a bill that doesn't itemize." He laughed and promised a vacation once the promotion landed. She looked at me over her glasses like an alarm. I kept showing up where love might be. Friday movie nights turned into Friday power naps. We spoke in bullet points, touched in ellipses. He said I was dramatic. I said I was observant. The city did its indifference beautifully. On a Tuesday that smelled like rain, he texted me a trophy emoji. "Shortlist," he wrote. "Veronica said I'm it." I typed a heart and a champagne bottle and meant both. I also meant, "I miss you." He didn't read the quiet part. I told Tasha, and she breathed in like a diver. "If he lands this, prepare for more Veronica, not less," she said. Promotion doesn't end appetite. I accused her of cynicism because it's easier than rearranging the furniture in your head. Then the receipt happened, the one signed to Hale's Suite. I held it, weighed it, and felt the floor tilt under our thrifted table. I bought champagne on sale, and faith at full price. He texted that he was working late. I decided to make late feel like love. The bottle wore a ribbon that refused to behave. I tied it again with the patience of someone arranging a narrative she wants to believe. The concierge downstairs smiled when I said Northline. I should have taken the way he said good luck as weather. I didn't. Security knew me from holiday parties. They waved me through with a congratulations I hadn't earned yet. The office at night is a terrarium. Plants pretending not to gossip. Glass reflecting versions of you that made different choices. On his floor, the carpet muffled everything except my heartbeat. I heard laughter, a woman's low and trained. I heard his voice say, "Close the blinds," the way you'd say check the oven. I stopped because instincts know things hope won't. The blinds remained half drawn. The city slid across them like silver scales. I breathed once, twice, and opened the door. They were very close and very certain. The kiss wasn't a mistake. It was a blueprint. His hand was on her jaw, hers on his lapel like she'd chosen it. For a second time behaved like a sacrament, holy and slow, so I could count details. The plaque with his new title angled to catch compliments. A second glass on the credenza sweating into a ring. Her lipstick shade precise. My card peeking from beneath the champagne where I'd placed it without permission. He stepped back first, shock arranged like empathy. "Harper, hey," he said, palms up, the universal sign for, "I'd like to reset the room." Veronica turned her head and wiped her mouth with 2 fingers the way a woman who always has napkins does. She adjusted his tie for him as if I weren't there, then met my eyes calmly. She was managerial, even in sin. "Congratulations are premature," she said, a sentence that felt like code, but almost certainly secured. I said nothing. Words would have been chewed. I set the bottle down carefully so I couldn't. to be accused of breaking what they were already breaking. My throat burned. My hands hummed. The building's air tasted like lemon cleaning fluid and bonus structures. Marcus moved into my silence fast, his best skill. "It's not what it looks like," he began, a phrase so lazy it made me want to sit on the floor. We were celebrating a win. Things got blurred. Veronica's eyebrows flicked. "You've misread context," she said, as if reading a policy aloud. "We're aligned professionally. Oversight requires proximity." She glanced at the second glass and impossibly slid it half an inch, tidying evidence. "We value your support," she added, like I was a brand partner and not a wife with a body suddenly too heavy. My voice came back smaller than I wanted. "You're his boss," I said unnecessarily. She smiled without teeth. "I lead a high-performance team," she replied. "Marcus is about to be recognized for his contribution." She touched his sleeve, proprietary and sterile at once. He nodded like a patient convinced a diagnosis was a compliment. I looked around the office and memorized it. The color of the wall that would haunt me. The way the blinds split the skyline into stripes. The precise angle of his chair facing hers. I wondered how many scenes had rehearsed here while I chose fonts for campaigns and believed in our calendar. "I'll go," I said, because I refuse to cry where people document. He reached for me. I stepped back. The bottle stayed between us like a prop. He murmured, "Harper, please." And I suddenly saw every late-night text as choreography notes. That's when Veronica said, bright and gentle, "You'll want to sit. HR's looped." She said it like a nurse, like a warning designed to sound like care. My phone buzzed as if obeying her. A calendar invite titled, "Conversation, Support Resources, tomorrow 10 a.m., with her name as optional attendee and HR as host. I picked up my card from under the bottle. I kept the ribbon. I left the champagne sweating on his success. In the elevator, the mirrored walls returned a woman I recognized less. My phone flashed another notification. Internal, congrats to Marcus Reed, VP Strategy, reporting to V. Hale. I smiled at myself and bared my teeth. "Okay," I told the reflection. "Let's build a different story." When cheaters get corporate training, they cheat with policy. The morning after the kiss, I walked into Northline carrying the kind of composure you rent by the hour. HR had booked a glass room with a view of Midtown, and a tray of bottled water lined up like witnesses. Marcus was already there, sleeves perfect, apology face rehearsed. Veronica arrived last, clipboard in hand, as if she were auditing a system, and I was the glitch. Paul Jeffries, HR lead, opened with empathy so polished it squeaked. "This is a safe space. We're just calibrating expectations after a celebratory evening." He complimented Marcus's trajectory, thanked Veronica for mentorship, and turned to me with a brochure smile. "Mrs. Reed, we also have wellness resources." He said wellness like a leash. Marcus leaned forward, palms steepled the way executive coaches teach. "I messed up," he said softly. "Got lost in the win. Pressure, champagne, bad optics." He didn't say betrayal. He said optics. He reached for my hand. I moved mine to the water. Veronica adjusted a pen so it lay perfectly parallel to the table's edge. "Context matters," she said. "We maintain high standards. What you saw was an unfortunate moment at the tail of a 12-week push." I listed facts like a metronome. 2 glasses, blinds, lipstick on his collar. My calendar invite time-stamped before I arrived. Paul murmured about perception gaps. Marcus said, "We should do counseling," as if we'd both misread a memo. Veronica added, "Professional relationships can appear intense from the outside," and looked at my reflection in the glass instead of me. "I'm not outside," I said. "I'm his wife." Paul nodded like a bobblehead with a law degree. "Which is why we want to support you both. We encourage partners to avoid social media while things settle." He slid a pamphlet across the table. Mindful partnerships in high-performance homes. Somewhere, a printer had earned hazard pay. I asked whether Northline maintains a policy on manager-subordinate relationships. Veronica didn't blink. The policy prohibits conflicts of interest, she said, crisp. I do not have one. Marcus, quickly. We have guardrails. Paul, soothing. We trust our leaders to disclose. I stared at the skyline and thought about ladders pushed through houses. Before the meeting ended, I noticed a familiar phrase on a folder peeking from Marcus's bag. Morals clause. The top sheet bore his name and last week's date. My stomach dropped an inch. Paul followed my eyes and smiled too broadly. Standard update, he said, covering it with another handout. Everyone at that level signs 1. Marcus didn't look at me. We left the glass room with different oxygen levels. Veronica touched Marcus's sleeve in the hallway, proprietary without heat, and peeled off toward a meeting that would never mention me. Paul escorted me to the elevator, murmuring about employee assistance programs and confidentiality. Avoid public statements, he added, kind as a padded wall. Rumors love a vacuum. I wanted to say rumors love convenient men. At home, the apartment felt like a stage after the audience leaves, quiet but dented. Flowers arrived with a card. I'm sorry. I love you. Let me fix this. Marcus came at 7 with takeout and contrition calibrated. He said she meant nothing, that he'd been drowning in adrenaline and proximity, that lines blur when you spend nights war-rooming the same slide. He said the kiss was a symptom. We were the patient. He said he wanted therapy. I said I wanted respect. Please don't post, he added, careful. It'll hurt us both. Optics. He always knew which word would land like reason while carrying him to safety. I took the pad thai and said I'd think. Thinking is the classy cousin of rage. My phone buzzed with an all-staff email. Subject, promotions and org update. There it was, official and indifferent. Congratulations to Marcus Reed, VP Strategy, reporting to V. Hale. The line sat in my gut like a cold coin. He watched my face and tried a hopeful smile. See, it's done. Now we stabilize. Stabilize is what you do to a patient after the crash, not to the driver who ran the light. I nodded slowly and excused myself to the bedroom. The city out the window blinked like a lie detector. I opened my notes app and titled a new folder, Receipts. An internal email hit my phone. Congrats to Marcus Reed, VP Strategy, reporting to V. Hale. He brought flowers like a settlement offer. Tulips, the expensive kind that open like they're confessing. He arranged them himself, careful and performative, then stood back as if he'd repaired a leak. Therapy Tuesdays, he proposed. Non-negotiable. We'll get ahead of this. He was a man who loved calendars more than consequences. I made coffee and asked questions softly so they'd travel farther. How long? He stared at the steam. It was momentum, he said. It felt like a wind transference. I got stupid. He promised there was no sex, that it was adrenaline, attention, a moment of exceptionalism. I asked why there were 2 glasses. He said she poured one for optics in case anyone walked by. You worry about optics a lot, I observed. It's my job, he answered. It's not your marriage, I said. He asked me not to tell Tasha yet because she weaponizes data, which is to say she tells the truth with receipts. I told him I already had. He flinched and then pivoted. Can you avoid social for a bit? Just until the dust settles? My promotion puts us on radars. Us, a generous pronoun. He squeezed my shoulder like a press release. Tasha arrived that evening with soup in a folder. She hugged me, glared at him, and sat us both at the thrifted table that has survived more honest meals than apologies. Document everything, she said, sliding over a checklist. Keycard logs, Slack exports, expense reports. If he's telling the truth, Data will hug him. If he's not, Data will slap. Marcus raised his hands. This is our marriage, he protested. Not a discovery request. Tasha smiled sweetly. Bad news. It's both. He cycled through the apology thesaurus. Mistake, pressure, champagne, blurred lines, bad judgment. I love you. Every phrase did a small amount of work without moving the heavy furniture. I asked if he had told Veronica we were in counseling. He said she recommended it. My vision pricked. She recommends deliverables, too, I said. Does she set our milestones? He rubbed his temples and said, Harper, please. The next morning, I woke to a calendar invite. Wellness meeting. Paul Jeffries. Optional. Veronica Hale. Subject line. Support and alignment. Alignment tastes like metal now. I forwarded it to Tasha with 3 coffin emojis. She replied with a gif of a lawyer rolling a suitcase. Time to loop Lila, she texted. Aunt Lila picked up on the second ring and listened without interrupting, then said, Protect yourself on paper. You can forgive on your own time. I told Marcus I was attending the meeting and bringing boundaries. He kissed my forehead. Don't burn it down, he whispered, as if I were a match. I replied, Stop tossing kindling. I started building my own file. I requested my visitor logs from the lobby on promotion night. I screenshotted the timestamp on the internal email. I saved the HR invite. I organized photos by date. Tasha helped me scrape Marcus's public Venmo for suspicious emojis. He laughed when he saw us huddled over a spreadsheet. I'm your husband, he said, wounded. Not a perp. Tasha didn't look up. Great, she said. Then the cells will be boring. He texted during lunch. Thinking about you. I stared at the words and felt nothing. A silence so loud I had to put my phone face down. The building's exterior camera feed in my head replayed the kiss like a training video. I drank water and circled items on Tasha's list. At 3:11 p.m., a second invite landed. Manager check-in, Hale Reed. Veronica had added a note. Happy to help contextualize for Harper. Contextualize is how people with power translate your pain into policy. I declined without comment. 5 minutes later, Paul emailed me a PDF titled Non-Disparagement Best Practices for Families. I forwarded it to my aunt with the subject, They think we're shareholders. That night, Marcus brought home dinner again, and a quieter face. I love you, he said. I love us. He meant it the way men mean it when we never had to defend the word against their own appetite. I ate rice because it's steady. At 8:07 p.m., my phone chimed with a new calendar block auto-added by HR. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Wellness meeting. Hale optional. He saw my screen and exhaled. They're trying to help, he said. I looked at the tulips opening and thought how beautiful surrender can appear on tables. Harper receives a calendar invite. HR wellness meeting with Veronica present. HR said they protect people. I learned which people. The wellness room had a plant that didn't quite believe in sunlight, and a view meant to persuade you that cities make sense. Paul opened with a gratitude sandwich. Thanks for coming. Empathy about stress. Reassurance that Northline values families. He used the word partnership 8 times. Veronica sat to his left with a legal pad and a presence calibrated to respectable. Marcus sat to my right, our knees inches apart and a lifetime away. We're here to reset narratives, Paul said. There's been a boundary slippage, not a breach. He offered resources like coupons, counseling stipends, flexible scheduling, wellness webinars. We also have guidance on social media to prevent escalation. He slid a laminated card across the table. Pause, breathe, decide, don't post. I stared at it until the letters rearranged into don't protest. Do you have a policy on manager-subordinate relationships? I asked. Veronica answered before Paul could find his script. We prohibit conflicts of interest, she said evenly. There isn't one. She looked at Marcus. He nodded dutifully. Paul added, We rely on leaders to disclose. I asked whether a kiss qualifies as something to disclose. Paul smiled with his whole jaw. We don't adjudicate affection, he said. We manage risk. Then manage this, I said, keeping my voice polite. He's now reporting directly to the person he kissed. That's a conflict tested in laboratories across corporate America. Marcus squeezed my hand under the table like a man trying to activate an escape hatch. We can request a dotted line, he offered. Veronica tilted her head. Let's not over-rotate, she murmured. We'd be punishing performance. I pulled a napkin from my bag and placed it on the table. It had a lipstick blot, hers, from his collar last night. Optics, I said gently, sliding it toward Paul. His smile thinned. We're not here to litigate, he said. We're here to move forward. Marcus whispered. Please. I asked to see Marcus's updated contract. Paul hesitated, then produced a sanitized summary. The word morals appeared like a landmine. When was this signed? I asked. Veronica's pen paused. Marcus answered to the window. Last week, he said. Paul jumped in. Standard at this level. Protects the firm. I asked whom it protects if the breach happens inside the chain of command. Paul folded his hands. Let's not make accusations, he said. Which is HR for ours are fine. Veronica pivoted to coaching. Harper, you're a brand lead. You know narratives. We need yours to be stability. She spoke kindness fluently, which is the language people use when they want cooperation more than truth. Northline can be generous, she added, when partners meet us with discretion. My aunt's voice rose in my head. Protect yourself on paper. I smiled. I'll be discreet, I said. By hiring a lawyer. Veronica didn't blink. Paul blinked for both of them. Marcus inhaled like a diver. We don't need lawyers, he said quickly. We need boundaries. Boundaries are what keep lawyers out, I replied. Yours dissolved. Paul ended the meeting with the speed of a man catching a falling tray. We support you both, he repeated, and pressed a brochure into my palm. Navigating stress as a couple in finance. Veronica stood, straightened her jacket, and offered a hand. I shook it because I'm not the feral one. In the hallway, Marcus tried to fold me into his chest. I stepped aside. I want your keycard logs, I said, and your expenses for the last 3 months. He went pale. You don't trust me, he murmured, like the revelation cut his finger. You kissed your boss, I said gently. I trust math. Back at my desk, I received a polite denial from facilities. Keycard data is confidential. Tasha forwarded a form letter that forces release through compliance when a policy may be implicated. I sent it. Marcus texted, Dinner tonight, just us? I replied, Bring receipts. That evening, while he showered, I tidied the mail and found a courier envelope addressed to him from legal. Inside sat the full morals clause, signed last week, requiring conduct consistent with the firm ES values on and off premises, immediate disclosure of any relationship that could be perceived as a conflict, adherence to leadership integrity. The ink smelled fresh. I stared until the words felt like furniture. When he emerged, I held it up. You knew, I said. He pinched the bridge of his nose. It's preventative, he answered. Everyone signs. Everyone doesn't kiss their signatory, I said. His jaw tightened. Please, he whispered, stop talking like a prosecutor. I looked at the clause again, then at my hands. I said, fine, I'll talk like a designer. This composition is ugly. Harper notices a morals clause in Marcus's contract, signed last week. If the truth won't come to you, subpoena its calendar. I started with what a brand lead understands. Metadata is gossip with a law degree. I filed a formal request through compliance for Marcus ES keycard logs the night of the kiss and the 2 months prior, citing conflict of interest review. I requested travel receipts, rideshare exports, and expense summaries for any line item coded to HAIL or SVP strategy. Tasha, saint of systems, spun up a spreadsheet with columns that glowed: date, time, location, cost, narrative, attachment. Compliance hesitated, then copied legal. Legal asked questions that sounded bored. HR chimed in with a reminder about privacy. I replied with the policy page number that mentions conflicts. Aunt Lila CC'd herself from a new account, which is her way of walking in with a clipboard. The logs arrived like reluctant confession. The pattern shouted, late swipes at 11:38 p.m., 12:12 a.m., 1:04 a.m. on floors he didn't need after hours. Rideshare receipts to an address that resolved to Veronica's building. A cluster of charges at Hotel Atherton's bar, line items with notes like client debrief, signed to room numbers that matched her travel itinerary. Marcus called me dramatic when I asked him to explain Atherton. Team drinks. Lobby was a zoo. She had a suite. It's normal, he said, the word normal begging for witnesses. Who else was there? I asked. People rotated, he said. Name one, I replied. He said, I don't keep attendance. I said, I do. Owen Pike entered like a quiet instrument. Tasha introduced us in a coffee shop that thinks foam is a personality. He's a private investigator with librarian energy. Calm eyes, tidy notes, zero show. I work in timelines, he said. You build brands, I build sequences. I handed him a Redwell. Keycard exports, rideshare logs, Atherton receipts, Slack screenshots where the winky face had taken out a small mortgage on my nerves. He nodded and said, give me 48 hours and no hero moves. Meanwhile, I pulled my own records. Credit card statements with spikes near Northline after midnight. A florist charge on a Tuesday that was not for me. Venmo breadcrumbs with, from a junior associate I'd never met. I mapped everything to my calendar. The nights I waited up. The mornings he was already gone. The weekends that learned to hurt. Marcus attempted a softer defense. I wanted to make partners someday, he said. She opens doors. She opened your mouth, I said before I could stop the sentence. His eyes went cold. That's cruel. It's observational, I said, which you keep mistaking for cruelty. Owen S. first ping landed that evening. A photo from Hotel Atherton security. Marcus and Veronica entering together, close enough to be mistaken for a single silhouette. His caption, timestamp, 11:43 p.m., hand in hand. My lungs forgot how. I sent it to Tasha. She sent back, we move. Lila texted, call Jillian. Her friend, an employment family litigator, specialized in cleaning corporate messes off people's lives without losing the edges. I confronted Marcus with the photo. He said it was a bad angle. He said the hallway was narrow. He said he was steadying her after a heel mishap. I looked at the grip. Fingers interlaced. That's not steadiness. That's agreement. You're building a case, he said flatly. I'm building a spine, I said. There's a difference. Compliance followed up, asking whether I needed further data. Yes, I wrote. Slack export for Hale Reid after 10 p.m., last 90 days. Also, policy acknowledgement logs. HR replied, we'll evaluate scope. Jillian, whom I had not met yet, sent an email from my aunt's introduction. Preserve everything. Do not delete texts. Screenshot Slack. Start a chronology. Meet tomorrow. That night, Marcus slept on the couch, to give you space. I lay awake with my heart counting down to something. The city on the other side of the glass kept its promise to shine for everyone, even people who don't deserve it tonight. At 7:12 a.m., Owen sent a second photo. Different night, same hotel, same two. His hand at the small of her back like ownership. He captioned it simply, pattern. I replied with one word, received. Owen sends a photo. Marcus and Veronica entering Hotel Atherton, hand in hand. Aunt Lila taught me how to hem skirts and contracts. She arrived with bagels and a banker's box labeled, "If he ever." I laughed the first time I saw it years ago. I didn't today. "Sit," she ordered, unwrapping a sesame like she was loading a tool. We spread papers across my second-hand table. Marriage license, lease, insurance policies, the post-nup she'd drafted for us back when love wasn't defensive. I had signed that post-nup on a sunny afternoon when the dishwasher still leaked, and Marcus still texted me hard eyes from the subway. Lila's logic then was simple. Prosperity makes people forget their settings. Paper remembers. The document did 3 things: protected my premarital savings, meager then, healthier now, codified an equal split of marital gains unless fault triggered, and included a fidelity clause tied to workplace power. Translation. If adultery leveraged supervisory influence, I kept the condo outright, and any bonus attached to the misconduct returned to the marital pot for redistribution. I had rolled my eyes at the time, and signed anyway. Marcus, to his credit then, had laughed and kissed me on the signature page. "We'll never need this," he'd said. Lila had smiled like an architect who knows earthquakes exist, whether or not you believe in tectonics. Now we were measuring after a shake. Lila slid the clause to me and tapped the line about supervisor-subordinate conduct. "This is your brace," she said. "He kissed the person who controls his bonus cycle. If we can tie any pay to the relationship, you trigger not just condo retention, but a clawback on that bonus." She scribbled a list. Screenshots, HR invite hotel receipts, keycard logs, the photo from Owen, the internal email listing his reporting line. "Stack these," she said. "We're not performing rage, we're arranging proof." Her phone buzzed with a text from Jillian Cortez, the litigator. "On standby," Jillian wrote. "Send me the post-nup and timeline." We scanned and sent. Jillian replied with surgical brevity. "Strong clause. Need corroboration. Preserve devices." We scheduled a meeting for the next morning. Lila poured more coffee and watched me breathe like she did when I was 12, and learning to pin without pricking myself. Marcus came home during this, briefcase a shield. He saw the documents and paled. "Is this necessary?" he asked, voice low. "We're married." "We're also bound to paper," Lila said pleasantly. "No shame in that unless someone tears it." He looked at me. "Harper." I gestured to the chair. "Sit," I echoed. I explained the clause without theatrics. He called it punitive. I called it preventive. He said I was weaponizing Aunt Lila. Lila smiled like a velvet guillotine. "I'm a clause with lipstick," she said. "Behave accordingly." He tried another angle. "If you take the condo, where do I go?" "To a sublet with your executive calm," Lila answered. He flinched. I asked whether any part of his promotion compensation was accelerated or sweetened under Veronica S. direct advocacy. He didn't answer. I asked whether any of his expenses labeled client were actually Veronica. He closed his eyes briefly. "This isn't generosity," he said. "This is war." "No," I said gently. "This is architecture. War is messy. This is clean." Lila slid me a smaller envelope. "Beneficiary update for retirement accounts. Ready but unsigned. Don't file yet. Leverage, not malice," she said. Then she tapped the bottom of the clause again. "Say it with me." I read aloud. "If adultery tied to workplace power is proven, the marital residence transfers solely to Harper Lane, and any related bonus is subject to redistribution." The words felt like rebar. Marcus stood. "I'm going to work," he said. "We can't fix this if you're in litigation mode." "We can't fix this if you're in denial mode," I replied. He grabbed his jacket and hesitated at the door. "I love you," he said, flat with fear. "Then act like it," Lila called after him. He left. We sat in the quiet afterward and listened to the building breathe. Lila squeezed my hand once, hard. "You can still choose mercy later," she said. "Today, choose structure. Clause states, If adultery tied to workplace power, Harper keeps the condo. They celebrated his loyalty with cake he didn't deserve. Northline filled a conference room with balloons that looked expensive on invoices and cheap in photographs. The banner read, "Congrats, Reed," in a font that felt like an apology to typography. I went because absence would be a headline and presence would be evidence. Tasha walked with me like a shadow that files. Veronica stood near the center, manicure neutral, smile dialed to benevolent. Marcus cut the cake with the posture of a man who knows cameras are trained on angles. Someone turned on a playlist called Corporate Joy. A junior associate asked what we were doing to celebrate as a family, and I nearly laughed at the word. Family is what gets you home after humiliation, not what throws you a sheet cake and a speech. Harper, Veronica said smoothly, as if we were at a wedding registry. We're so proud of him. She touched Marcus's wrist lightly, the proprietary gesture of someone who writes reviews. He smiled at me, pleading. A man trying to color within lines he'd already erased. I measured the room, compliance whispering to HR, analysts eager for a slice of adjacency, Paul hovering with a camera he shouldn't own. A small circle formed. Toasts flowed. Veronica talked about Marcus's strategic acuity. Paul praised his values alignment. I swallowed a noise. An associate asked what I did. Before I could answer, Veronica said, "She's in brand, with the gentle condescension people reserve for hobbies." "She's our aesthetic conscience," Marcus added, trying to gift me dignity with a bow I didn't request. Tasha's eyebrow attempted to leave her face. I took plates because my hands needed occupation. When I returned to the credenza, I saw a gift bag tucked behind the punch. A slim box from a jeweler whose prices suggest apology. I checked the tag. To M. No from. Tasha snapped a photo. "Evidence of shiny," she murmured. I slipped the card into my pocket. Later in the bathroom, I opened it. A note in Veronica's precise hand. "For our wins. V." My stomach flipped the table. The speeches ended. Applause, obligatory and sticky. A junior analyst lingered by the coffee urn, eyes skittering. She cleared her throat. "Ms. Lane?" she whispered. "You don't know me. I, work late a lot. People talk." I held my breath. "Check the Q4 off-site photos," she said, words exiting like contraband. "In the shared drive, someone made an album that's not curated." Her hands shook when she passed me a sticky note with the folder path. "I didn't tell you," she added, terrified. "You didn't," I said, tucking it into my phone case. "Thank you." On cue, Veronica's laugh rang from the other side of the room, low, warm, convincing. Marcus turned as if tethered. Tasha leaned into my shoulder. "You don't have to finish this cake," she said. "You don't have to finish this anything." I smiled outwardly and sharpened inward. We left on a compliment breeze. In the elevator, Tasha exhaled. "How do you want to play the photos?" she asked. "Quietly," I said, "and permanently." Back at my desk, I navigated to the path the analyst had given me. The thumbnails loaded like a heartbeat. There were tables and whiteboards and group hugs. There were also porch shots at midnight, hands too familiar, faces too close, the gravity between bodies that forgot they're observed. I selected download and looked up to find Marcus in my doorway, tie loosened, mouth set to narrative. "We good?" he asked, as if this were a sprint retrospective. "No," I said. "We're accurate." He glanced at my screen and paled a color I hadn't seen on him. "Harper," he warned, "don't do this here." I thought of the kiss in his office and said, "You did." He stepped in, lowered his voice. "Please, let's talk at home." I nodded to end the scene. He left with that executive calm I used to admire. Tasha rolled her chair over and clicked the download bar. "Round 2, she said. "Let's see what Monday wasn't supposed to show." A junior analyst whispers, "Check the Q4 off-site photos." patterns are just secrets that got lazy. The Q4 folder opened like a confession booth, and the thumbnails stopped pretending. Porch photos at midnight with fairy lights doing the least, Veronica leaning against a railing while Marcus stood in the orbit of her voice. Group shots where people point at whiteboards because pointing looks like intelligence, and then the candid 2 frames later where his hand drifted to the small of her back. Timestamps ran like a drumline. 11:08 p.m., 11:26 p.m., 12:03 a.m. The deck he'd sworn he worked on showed up in one photo as a prop, screensaver glowing while they clinked. I downloaded everything and sorted by date created, then by edited, watching how stories mutate under thumbnails. Tasha built a grid. Photo timestamps in one column, keycard pings in another, rideshare receipts a third, Slack messages a fourth. It started singing. Here, she said, highlighting, 12:14 a.m. Marcus posts, deck final, 12:16 a.m. Photo of him holding a sparkler beside Veronica, 12:19 a.m. Rideshare request to Atherton. The grid didn't care about apologies. It liked order. There were screenshots of calendar blocks labeled M+V strategy, recurring, always after 10. Strategy, Tasha muttered. Is that what the kids are calling it? We found an expense for a jewelry store coded as client hospitality, date matched to a candid where Veronica's wrist glinted under a patio lamp. I emailed accounting for policy language around gift limits. They replied with a PDF. Gifts to superiors prohibited. Exceptions pre-cleared in writing. I wrote back. Produce the clearance. Silence is an answer with good posture. I opened our cell account and scrolled the itemized bill, not looking for words, just shapes. One number repeated like a heartbeat, short calls, late hours, clustered after midnight. Not Veronica's known line, a prepaid, secondary. Marcus had once said, work gives us backup everything. Backup is what people call it when they create a parallel world with its own weather. I clicked through, added the totals, and felt my mouth go dry. I printed 4 photos for Jillian, a boardroom laugh too close, a balcony shot with hands not asking permission, the sparkler frame, and the elevator mirror selfie, a smear of them, late, faces blurred with speed. I added the jewelry receipt, the Slack emojis, the calendar recurrences, the hotel bar bills. The pile looked like a syllabus for a class I never wanted. Corporate Infidelity 401, Advanced Optics. Marcus pinged me. Dinner? I replied. Working. He typed, we need to talk. I typed, we are. He asked what I wanted. I listed 3 simple things. Keycard logs furnished directly from security, Slack export for the after-hours channel, an email to HR requesting a new reporting line. I'll ask, he wrote. Ask faster, I sent. When the prepaid number called, curiosity answered. A woman's voice, cool, efficient. Is Marcus with you? She asked. Who's this? I countered. Delivery. She lied too smoothly, then hung up. I sent the number to Owen. He replied, burner, bought cash midtown. Will pull camera if store cooperates. At midnight, the shared drive hiccuped. 2 of the more damning photos vanished, and then reappeared renamed with hyphens. Someone was curating in real time. Tasha smiled like a cat with a patent. Version history, she said, restoring the originals with a click. Thank you, collaboration software. We exported the album with checksum hashes so future edits would tattle. Veronica's public calendar showed office birthday Marcus at noon, then board prep from 3 to 5, then a discrete block labeled white space. I printed it. Jillian would enjoy the phrase. At 2:07 a.m., I finally stood, spine crackling. Sleep, Tasha ordered. I nodded and failed. Morning tasted like metal. I checked Marcus's phone bill one more time, chasing that repeating shape. There it was. A cluster on the first Wednesday of the month, exactly when he'd said he was with the guys. I I remembered the photo from that night. Her reflection in an elevator door, lipstick a surgical red. Patterns don't lie. They just hope you do. I texted Jillian. Packet ready. She replied, bring originals. We play offense now. I closed the laptop and stared at my ring. It felt heavier than gold and lighter than paper. Out the window, the river of cabs flowed. I took a breath that didn't fix anything and still counted as survival. I opened our account again and circled the prepaid number. Harper spots a prepaid phone on Marcus's bill, secondary line. Justice needs counsel and clean folders. Jillian Cortez's office smelled like toner and decisions. She wore confidence like a tailored blazer and listened the way good litigators breathe. Slow, on purpose, harvesting facts from the air. Start with the kiss, she said, and didn't interrupt while my throat learned to narrate a crime scene without apologizing for the blood. We laid the documents out. Post-nup on the left, HR invites center, Q4 photos on the right, receipts and logs like stepping stones between. Jillian traced the fidelity clause with her fingertip, smiled almost imperceptibly. Aunt Lila is a genius, she said. This clause is narrow and lethal, only triggers if workplace power is leveraged. Hale is his superior. If any bonus or advancement ties to the relationship, we pull the ripcord. She wrote goals on a yellow pad. 1. Protect your job and mental health. 2. Freeze narratives. No retaliation, no gaslight. 3. Trigger internal investigation independent of HR chain. 4. Secure condo under post-nup. 5. Preserve evidence. 6. Negotiate from strength or file hard. We'll start with a litigation hold, she said. Compels Northline to preserve devices, chat logs, cameras. HR cannot tidy without risk of sanctions. She drafted faster than my breath. Subject line crisp. Preservation demand. Lane v. Reed Hale Northline. We role-played retaliation. If they downgrade your husband to mutual separation to save face, she warned, they'll try to waive policy breach. We keep receipts loud. She prepared letters to the board's audit and compliance chairs, bypassing HR. Allegations of supervisory misconduct, conflict of interest, and policy violations demand independent review. She added a footnote citing the gift policy with Veronica's bracelet variants highlighted. I loved the pettiness of footnotes that end careers. Jillian's associate scanned my packets into a war room folder. Chain of custody matters, he said, labeling envelopes with date and my initials. No annotating originals. Pierce, the forensic doc guy recommended by Lila, popped in on FaceTime to confirm he could authenticate screenshots via hashes and verify photo metadata. If they claim Photoshop, we will introduce them to math, he promised. Your mental health, Jillian said, shifting tone. Therapy is not weakness. It's evidence you're caring for yourself while navigating trauma. Courts like stable protagonists. She slid me 2 referrals and a script for HR if they tried to spin counseling as incompetence. You'll say, I'm seeking support to maintain performance during a personal crisis. This does not impact my role. Full stop. Then the fun part, offense. We'll demand Marcus be moved off Hale's line pending review, she said. We'll request they assign an external firm to investigate. She drafted a letter for Marcus to sign, acknowledging that his conduct presented a perceived conflict. If he refuses, he declares war. If he signs, we frame it as remediation that came too late. We address the condo. File notice of intent to enforce post-nup, she said. Don't transfer anything yet. Leverage first. But record the existence with the county so no one can sneak a lien. She underlined. No surprise moves. You're transparent. They can't be. Finally, she took my phone, opened the prepaid call log, and grinned thinly. Burner is our friend, she said. Owen will track purchase. We'll subpoena store footage with the time window. If Marcus appears, jackpot. If Hale does, jackpot. If an associate does, conspiracy. She printed the number in bold at the top of a page titled Exhibits, then wrote beneath it, "Narrative beats spin." Before I left, Jillian rehearsed silence. "From here on, you do not engage with Veronica or HR informally," she said. "No venting to colleagues. Everything funnels through me. If Marcus begs, you say, all communication through counsel. If he turns sweet, send flowers back to the shop." She placed a folder in my hands. Letters ready to send, already addressed. We hit send on the litigation hold. The emails jumped into the world with tiny digital capes. 10 minutes later, Northline's counsel replied, "We acknowledge receipt. Preservation in process." Another ping. Audit chair requesting a call. Jillian winked. "They're awake." At the door, she paused. "One more thing," she said. "Forgiveness is yours to schedule, not theirs to demand. We're not here to decide your heart. We're here to protect the floor you stand on while it beats." I laughed for the first time in days. "You're very good at stairs," I told her. She nodded. "I practice." Jillian filed a lit hold to Northline, preserved devices, chat logs, cameras. Veronica spoke about integrity while my marriage bled. Northline scheduled a company-wide town hall to celebrate growth and reaffirm values, which is corporate for the blogs are sniffing. The auditorium gleamed like a stock photo. Lanyards bobbed. A branded sizzle reel made teamwork look like synchronized swimming. Marcus sat 3 rows ahead, neck stiff. I sat with Tasha under a vent that sounded like an anxious sigh. Veronica took the stage in navy, Authority S favorite color, and thanked us for a quarter that tested our mettle. She said transparency 5 times in 3 minutes and trust 7. She talked about guardrails and our ethical edge. Her slide deck had a slide titled "Values" in a font I respect, and a reality I don a T. Applause behaved. Q&A time. The first 2 questions were about headcount and coffee machines. Little sanity sips. Then an anonymous question appeared on the screen through the app. "Do we have a policy on manager-subordinate relationships? If so, is it enforced?" A hush fell like plastic. Veronica smiled without blinking. "We prohibit conflicts of interest," she said. Even now, that sentence like a tick. "Disclosures are handled by HR and compliance. We are fully aligned." Her tone could write alibis. Beside me, Tasha murmured, "And we are fully recording." I didn't need the proof. I needed the courage. My phone buzzed with a DM from an unknown. "You didn't hear it from me. Check the 18th floor camera." Another ping followed with a link to an internal help desk ticket referencing camera retrieval for audit. The requester, Paul Jeffries. The approver, Veronica Hale. The stated reason? Safety review after a late-night delivery. Timestamp. The night of the kiss. I sent the link to Jillian. She replied with a single word. Gold. Then, "Do not access yourself. We'll have Owen pull via a lawful request." She texted Owen. He texted back a raised hand emoji and a clock. In the meantime, Tasha scraped the public-facing camera list from the facility's wiki like a raccoon with a Master S degree. 18th floor East Corridor faces Hale's office, she whispered. Retention is 30 days unless someone extends. Guess who can extend? We both looked at the stage. Veronica's voice rolled over us like a training video. "We are one team," she said. "We take care of each other." She gestured toward the front row where Marcus clapped on a delay. She spotlighted promotions, told a story about a janitor who found a wallet, and introduced a new mentorship initiative, Horizon Leaders. The room cheered because applause is cheaper than audits. After, the hallway filled with that post-event churn, compliments, calendar Tetris, gossip under breath. Paul intercepted me with a smile that made me think of laminated cards. "Hope wellness resources are helpful," he said. "Remember, discretion protects everyone." I smiled like a woman who knits her own parachutes. "So does policy," I replied. "We'll stay aligned." Veronica found us anyway, gliding on professional wind. "Harper," she said warmly, "how are you holding up?" The question wore sympathy like a brooch. "Focused," I said. She nodded approvingly, as if I'd passed a resilience test. Her perfume smelled like ambition wearing citrus. "Marcus is an asset," she added, a sentence that used to be flattering. "We want to support you both." Tasha smiled without showing teeth. "Nothing says support like documented disclosures," she offered. Veronica's lashes didn't move. "Of course," she said. "We're fully aligned." In the stairwell, my phone buzzed again. Owen. Got the 18th floor feed, pulled under counsel's request, reviewing now. A minute later, "You'll want to see 11:54 p.m. He sent a still, elevator doors parting, Marcus and Veronica stepping out, her hand inside his jacket like a private pocket, his mouth close to her ear, both smiling with the arrogance of people who think metal doors can be charmed into discretion. "Metal doors don't lie," Tasha whispered, seeing my face. I sent the still to Jillian, who replied with a calendar invite. Board notice, evidence packet 1. She added audit, compliance, and outside counsel retained by the board, not HR. My ribs loosened a notch. I walked back to my desk through a hallway that suddenly looked like it had cameras everywhere. Maybe that's what integrity feels like on the way back. Eyes open, receipts printing. On my screen, Owen's file transfer bar crawled forward like a verdict walking down a long corridor. Harper gets a DM. "You didn't hear it from me. Check the 18th floor camera." Metal doors don't lie. Owen delivered the footage like a parable. Grainy, grayscale, time-stamped honesty. At 11:54 p.m., the elevator opened on Northline's 18th floor. Marcus and Veronica stepped out together, not hurried, not startled, moving with the ease of people confident the building loves them. Veronica's hand disappeared inside his jacket like a secret pocket. His mouth lowered toward her ear. Their bodies made a constellation that didn't require labels. The corridor camera watched without blinking. They turned left toward her office. The door closed. Time stamped their absence into policy. Jillian cued the video on a big screen in her conference room, soundless, devastating. "This destroys celebratory blur," she said, "and misread context, and wellness." She paused the frame where Veronica glanced up instinctively, a predatory check for witnesses, and let us memorize it. Tasha annotated a grid. Elevator 11:54 p.m. Keycard. Hale office 11:55. Slack. Deck sent 12:14. Rideshare. Atherton 12:19. She underlined the pattern and drew a box around the word habit. We layered the Q4 candids under the video stills. Jillian added the jewelry receipt, the recurring calendar M+V strategy, the hotel bar charges, the burner number, the gift policy PDF, and the HR safety ticket that requested camera pulls for a late-night delivery. She wrote a heading across the top page like a verdict. Supervisory misconduct plus retaliation. Risk plus post-nup trigger. Then she assembled the packet like a gallery show. Exhibits labeled, sequence deliberate, narrative mercilessly calm. "Next act, notice," Jillian said. She drafted 2 letters. The first to Northline's board through outside counsel, demanding an independent investigation, removal of Veronica from Marcus's reporting line effective immediately, preservation of all communications, and an assurance against retaliation toward me or any whistleblowers. The second to Marcus and Veronica personally, a spousal notice invoking the post-nup S-fidelity clause contingent on findings, and a demand that all further contact be through counsel. "We give them a door," she said, "and a deadline." She typed a line that sang, "Mediation or public filing. Choose by 5 p.m. tomorrow." Owen had one more clip. Veronica exiting alone at 1:52 a.m., adjusting her blouse, hair neat, expression managerial. Marcus following 4 minutes later, tie loosened, phone in hand, eyes on a message that looked like relief. Jillian exhaled. They didn't even bother with separate elevators, she said. Arrogance generates evidence. I asked the question that still tasted like metal. What if they say consent? Jillian nodded. Consent is irrelevant to conflict, she said. She controls his pay. He reports to her. The policy prohibits. The morals clause binds. Their story dies in the hallway. We hit send on the notices. Tasha watched the outbox like a hawk. Audit's outside counsel replied first. Received. Board counsel engaged. Please forward video under protective cover. Jillian obliged, embedding the frame with the timestamp burned in. She added a footnote citing retention periods and the prior help desk ticket that looked like a pretext for scrubbing. We're telling them exactly where not to put the bleach, she murmured. Marcus texted, sensing movement he couldn't see. Can we talk? I'll come home early. Jillian took my phone and typed back. All communication through counsel. He replied with 3 dots that didn't resolve. Then, I love you. The words bounced off my ribs like pennies. Veronica emailed Jillian directly, immaculate tone. We're disappointed by the adversarial approach. My client categorically denies any policy breach. Jillian answered with the still of the elevator doors, and 1 sentence. We prefer to resolve discreetly. Your client's conduct prefers light. Tasha snorted softly. She won't forward that to PR, she said, but she'll want to. By late afternoon, Owen had secured an affidavit from the building ES security contractor establishing the camera ES chain of custody and retention. Jillian filed a preservation motion notice with the court. No case yet. Just a flag to the judge that something delicate was about to be argued. It keeps them honest, she said. Honest adjacent. I went home and sat at our second-hand table, the same wood that had hosted dumplings and deadlines, and watched the still image on my laptop. It was merciless because it was ordinary. There was no dramatic dip, no cinematic light, just 2 people sure no one would care. I cared. At 4:58 p.m., Jillian hit send on the last email of the day. Settlement conference invitation. Tomorrow 10 a.m. Mediation or public filing. Her subject line carried a countdown. She turned to me. Sleep if you can, she said. Tomorrow we give them a choice. Jillian serves notice. Mediation or public filing. They weaponized narrative. We weaponized dates. Before midnight, the machine started humming. Anonymous accounts praising Veronica's mentorship. A lifestyle blog posting an item about a high-powered female executive targeted by a jealous spouse. Comments about modern marriages and open minds. Marcus texted at 1:06 a.m. This is getting out of hand. Please tell Jillian to slow down. I muted my phone and counted my breath until morning. By 8, Northline's PR had issued a bland memo. We do not comment on personnel matters. We are proud of our values. Jillian smiled like a surgeon. Good, she said. They're talking to the air while we talk to the board. She sent Audit the full packet. Elevator stills, Q4 photos, Atherton receipts, gift policy, Slack exports, after-hours emojis that aged terribly, the help desk ticket for camera pulls, and Marisol-level timeline grids courtesy of Tasha. Each exhibit had a friendly title. When words say one thing and metal doors say another, because humor is a blade that cuts quietly. Veronica's counsel replied with a counter-narrative. 2 colleagues celebrating a win, any intimacy misconstrued. Our client has voluntarily recused herself from performance discussions regarding Mr. Reed. Jillian circled voluntarily and wrote too late. She attached the morals clause with yesterday's date and highlighted immediate disclosure of any relationship that could be perceived as a conflict. Then she asked for the disclosure form. Silence wore a suit. Marcus tried earnest. Trial separation? We can tell people we're working on us, he wrote. Don't ruin me. Jillian answered. Our client seeks truth, not ruin. Move off Hale's line, stipulate to an independent investigation, and accept a bonus clawback if misconduct is confirmed. Mediate property per post-nup. He sent me. You'll be happy with the condo either way. It was meant to be benevolent. It read like a hedge. The burner number lit up again. Owen traced it to a midtown bodega with a camera that sees all. The timestamp matched a purchase by a person in a camel coat, face obscured. We flagged it for subpoena. Tasha found a Slack from a junior analyst. Town hall queue was savage. Reply from Marcus. We realigned. Jillian pasted the smiley into an exhibit titled Alignment and underlined the time. 12:03 a.m., the same minute he billed client debrief. Then came the organized empathy. A thread of fake accounts flooded my old design portfolio with comments about bitter wives. Tasha scrubbed IPs and found they clustered near Northline's office and one co-working space. She sent the map to audit. Retaliation, Jillian wrote, and the word glowed. At noon, audit's outside counsel requested a call. The board chair, Douglas Carr, joined, a voice like oak. We have your packet, he said. We will convene an executive session tonight. Jillian kept her tone soft steel. Our client will attend, she said, and so will her counsel. We request the HR lead recuse. We request that Ms. Hale be present for fact questions, but remain silent during discussion. Carr paused, then, granted. Northline, SPR escalated. A planted piece appeared about a misunderstood mentorship that produced spectacular results. Jillian fired back quietly by delivering our packet to the company's compliance mailbox, which bypasses PR and lands on lawyers who collect risk like rain. She included a single sentence. Please advise whether insurance coverage is impacted by a failure to enforce policy. Tasha laughed out loud. She just threatened their premiums. Marcus sent a voice memo I didn't play. Veronica emailed Jillian to propose terms. Private coaching. Reassignment of reporting line after the quarter. Mutual non-disparagement. No public filing. Jillian responded with a bullet list. Immediate suspension pending investigation. Reassignment now. Outside firm. Protective order for evidence. No contact. Bonus hold. Property mediation under post-nup terms. Written apology to our client. Policy update company-wide. She ended with, This is our low ask. Owen delivered a treat. The elevator footage from a week prior, 11:17 p.m., same bodies, same choreography, her hand on his tie like a metronome. He clipped both into a side-by-side and titled it Consistency. Jillian slid it into the deck. Dates don't argue, she said. At 4, the doorbell rang. Aunt Lila arrived with a thermos and a sentence. Men like Marcus want redemption without receipts. She straightened my blazer, tucked a tissue into my sleeve like it was 1998, and said, Speak softly. Bring exhibits. Let silence make some of your points. I hugged her and didn't break. At 5:21 p.m., an email landed from Douglas Carr. Executive session, 7:30 p.m. Tonight. Boardroom 27th floor. The subject line carried weight like a safe door closing. Jillian looked at me, eyes kind. This is the room, she said. We've been building the floor. Now we stand on it. Board Chair Douglas Carr emails. Executive session. Tonight. They finally closed the door, and the truth got oxygen. The boardroom on the 27th floor was colder than every other room at Northline, on purpose. Douglas Carr sat at the head, silver hair cut exact, hands folded like verdicts. To his right, 2 directors from audit and compliance. To his left, outside counsel, a woman whose eyebrows could file motions. At the far end, HR lead Paul Jeffries looked like a brochure misplaced in a deposition. Veronica took a seat with the stillness of someone trained to perform under glass. Marcus sat beside her, jaw clenched, wedding band suddenly heavy. Jillian opened like a surgeon. No theatrics, only clean cuts. We're here because policy isn't a suggestion, she began. She cued the elevator footage. The room watched silence tell the story. Douglas did not blink at 11:54 p.m. when Veronica's hand slipped into Marcus's jacket. Jillian moved through exhibits. Q4 candids, gift policy versus bracelet receipt, Slack winks, ride share to Atherton, keycard logs, the help desk ticket for camera pulls masquerading as safety. She placed the morals clause on the table like a brick. Signed last week, she said. Disclosure required immediately. None filed. Paul tried to intervene with words like context and supportive environment. Douglas lifted a palm. Stop, he said. We're not laundering this in HR. He turned to compliance. Policy? The director of compliance answered crisp. Prohibits relationships within a reporting line, requires disclosure, prescribes reassignment pending review, triggers investigation by independent firm. Her eyes settled on Veronica. We have no disclosure. Veronica cleared her throat to assemble plausible deniability. 2 colleagues celebrated a win, she said, voice even. If a moment of affection occurred, it was ill-judged, brief, and not reflective of ongoing conduct. Mr. Reed's advancement stands on merit. Jillian didn't argue. She replayed the second elevator clip, the earlier week. Veronica's composure faltered a millimeter. Marcus stared at the table like it would save him. Audit's outside counsel asked questions that required verbs. Ms. Hale, did you inform HR of any relationship of a personal nature with a direct report? No. Mr. Reed, did you receive any gifts from Ms. Hale? Marcus hesitated. A book, he said. And perhaps a bracelet? Counsel raised an eyebrow. Marcus swallowed. That was for a client, he said. Tasha, behind me, wrote the word client and drew a skull. Then came the corroboration. Jillian introduced a statement from a former analyst, Veronica S., previous mentee, describing blurred boundaries and late-night coaching that felt mandatory. It wasn't a formal complaint then. It rang truer now. Douglas read it twice and folded it like a map to consequences. He asked IT about the camera retention extension. They confirmed Veronica approved the pull. Under safety, he repeated, unimpressed. Jillian pivoted to me just long enough to humanize the wreckage without turning the room into therapy. My client is a high-performing brand lead at a partner firm, she said. She has acted with restraint. No leaks, no theatrics, only evidence. She is invoking a post-nup clause contingent on findings. She seeks a fair process, protection from retaliation, and a floor that doesn't tilt beneath women who say, policy applies to everyone. Silence reeled the line in. Douglas leaned back, eyes on the ceiling like he was reading a code printed there. Then he spoke in decisions. Effective immediately, Ms. Hale is placed on administrative leave, pending an independent investigation by an outside firm. Mr. Reed is suspended pending inquiry. HR is recused. Compliance will oversee. Devices are to be imaged tonight. Both of you will have no contact with staff, no access to systems, no entry to premises without escort. Veronica opened her mouth, then closed it. Marcus whispered, "Please," toward me. A strange prayer in a secular room. I did not look away. Douglas continued. We will also review prior mentorships under Ms. Hale for pattern risks. Audit to report in 14 days. Counsel will draft non-retaliation communications to staff by morning. He turned to me. Ms. Lane, you will receive a written assurance and a direct line to the independent firm. Thank you for your composure. Paul attempted one last save. Perhaps we could frame this as a mutual break to avoid reputational harm. Douglas stared him into a lower life form. We will frame this as policy enforcement, he said. That's what reputations are for. We stood, chairs side. Veronica gathered her bag like a ritual. Marcus looked small, a man who bet his vows against a ladder and lost. In the hallway, Jillian squeezed my hand once. Swift, professional joy. Tasha exhaled so hard her lanyard flipped. Aunt Lila texted a single emoji. A bolt. Board places Veronica on leave. Marcus suspended pending inquiry. He said, I love you, the way people plead with bank apps. After the executive session, Marcus texted that he needed to collect clothes and talk like adults. Jillian arranged the pickup with Holt-style precision. 30 minutes, supervised by the building concierge. No discussion of the case. He arrived early anyway, eyes rimmed, tie abandoned, carrying the look of a man who'd tried to outwalk a reputation. I opened the door, stepped aside, and let him pass like a storm that had already rained. He moved through the apartment cataloging absences. His watch box, his gym bag, the shaving kit he bought the day the promotion rumor sprouted. "It wasn't supposed to go like this," he said, soft. "We were supposed to win and then rest." He folded a shirt too neatly. I made a mistake. I set a suitcase on the bed, unzipped it like a gavel. "You made a series," I said. The elevator just pressed play. He tried empathy as strategy. "You know how it is," he said. "Late nights become their own country. Everyone performs. Everyone blurs. Veronica is persuasive." He lifted his hands. "But you are my life. We can repair if you stop letting Jillian escalate." I thought about the laminated "don't post" card, the help desk ticket labeled safety, the bracelet coded client. "Jillian didn't kiss your boss," I said. "Jillian didn't sign your morals clause last week and forget disclose." He wandered to the kitchen, touched the second-hand table like it might forgive him. "I never meant to hurt you," he said, the oldest sentence on earth. It was adrenaline, and then I couldn't untangle. I was afraid to lose the ladder I'd finally grabbed. I leaned against the counter. "You didn't grab a ladder," I said. "You climbed me." He flinched, then reached for the last tool men carry when the script dissolves. Future tense. "We can go private," he said. "Counseling, a statement, reassignment. Let the board do its theater. Don't ruin me in the process." His voice cracked on ruin. I thought of the junior analysts shaking hands, of the mentee's statement about mandatory midnight coaching. I thought of Tasha whispering receipts into my spine. "You ruined you," I said. "I'm building exits." He tried tenderness next. "I love your lists," he whispered. "I love your stubbornness, the way you measure twice before you forgive. Remember the ramen place? Remember the rip in the couch?" He stepped closer, lowered his voice. "We're us." The word landed like a souvenir from a place closed for renovation. "We were," I said. "Then you outsourced intimacy to career management." His phone buzzed. He silenced it like reflex. "They're spinning already," he muttered. "I'm the lesson of the week." He looked at me, truly looked, and some shell cracked. "I don't want to be this man," he said. My throat softened, treacherous. Compassion is a muscle memory. It flexes even under subpoena. I nodded once. "Then stop," I said. "Own it. Sign what Jillian sent. Step off her line. Accept the clawback. Apologize in writing without theater. And move out." He swallowed. "Is there any version where I keep you?" The question was small, almost human. I wished it had arrived before the bracelet, before the burner, before the corridor camera. "There's a version where you keep your dignity," I said. "Take that one." I handed him an envelope. Notice to vacate under the postnup's interim separation provision. Keys due Friday, access suspended Saturday. He read, nodded, folded it carefully like a napkin no one would reuse. "You made a floor," he said, half accusation, half awe. "Aunt Lila and I corrected, and Jillian brought stairs." He zipped the suitcase and stood in the doorway with a face that would persuade a median jury, and no longer me. "Harper," he said. "Last try. Gentle. Honest enough to sting. I love you." I nodded. "I love the woman I was with you," I said. "She doesn't live in this apartment anymore." The concierge witnessed the handoff of keys for the storage locker. He signed the log like a man who knows ink can hurt. In the hall, he paused. "If I fix everything they ask," he said, "will you reconsider?" I thought of rules and rivers and my aunt's plaque voice. Measure twice, live true. "I'll reconsider hating you," I said. "That's the only part I control." He left with 30 minutes precisely spent. The door clicked. Silence poured in like clean light. I set his spare fob on the counter, breathed once, and texted Jillian. Notice served. Keys due Friday. Then I put my shoes by the door, facing out. Old habit, new house. Harper serves notice to vacate. Marcus moves out. We didn't settle for peace. We bargained for truth. The mediation room smelled like printer heat and citrus wipes, neutral on purpose. A retired judge sat at the head with kind eyes that hit a stopwatch. Jillian stacked our exhibits in quiet columns. Elevator stills, Q4 candids, receipts, Slack, the help desk ticket, the morals clause, the post-nup, the mentee's corroboration. Veronica's counsel arrived first, angular politeness, followed by Northline's outside counsel carrying a folder labeled simply board. Marcus came last, tie redomesticated, apology ironed. The judge opened with the rules: confidentiality, caucuses, time boxes. Jillian summarized our posture. Independent investigation underway, request for immediate reporting line severance already granted, suspension imposed, demand for bonus hold, anti-retaliation memo, condo secured per post-nup if misconduct is confirmed, private apology letter, policy update. Our client wants structure, not spectacle, she said. We can do this without a courthouse if accountability remembers its verbs. Veronica's counsel countered with a minimalist story. Brief lapse, no quid pro quo, no effect on pay decisions, immediate recusal, commitment to coaching and policy refresh. He offered mutual non-disparagement, reassignment after quarter close, and relationship boundaries training. Jillian didn't smile. Words like recusal are retroactive theater, she said. And boundaries training is not a remedy. It's a punchline. Northline's counsel took the company lane. The board takes this seriously, she said. An outside firm is engaged. We propose to hold Mr. Reed's bonus pending findings, move Ms. Hale off operational duties permanently if misconduct is substantiated, and issue a company-wide policy clarification. The judge nodded. Progress lives in verbs. Caucus time. In our room, Jillian lowered her voice. We can trade speed for teeth, she said. If they want a quiet runway, we require permanent consequences. She revised the list. 1. Veronica resigns or is terminated for cause if the independent report confirms policy breach. 2. Marcus forfeits any promotion-related bonus. 3. Harper keeps the condo under the post-nup without challenge. 4. Northline issues an internal apology to affected staff. 5. Policy update with mandatory manager training and a hotline directly to audit. 6. Mutual non-disparagement limited to public statements. No gag orders regarding facts. 7. No retaliation clause with liquidated damages. Back in joint session, Jillian presented the sharpened terms. Veronica's counsel bristled at for cause. Northline's counsel asked for resignation to pursue opportunities. Jillian allowed the euphemism only if the report used the words policy breach. Marcus's lawyer requested preservation of his employment at a lower band after suspension. Jillian slid the second elevator clip forward like a quiet thunderclap. The judge sipped water. Mr. Reed's reemployment is a separate hill, he said. Today, we move this mountain. Owen texted mid-session. The bodega camera showed the burner purchased by an associate from Veronica A.'s team. Jillian raised an eyebrow, didn't break cadence, and wrote on her pad, conspiracy pressure. In caucus, she told me gently, we have enough. I nodded, felt relief and grief shake hands. By afternoon, we had a frame. Northline agreed to place Veronica on administrative leave pending the report, pre-negotiate her exit if breach confirmed, freeze Marcus's bonus, and issue a policy memo signed by Douglas Carr. They agreed to a private written apology to me, acknowledging violation of boundaries and the harm caused to spouse and staff. They agreed to route any future manager-subordinate relationship disclosures directly to compliance with automatic reassignment, until cleared. They agreed to pay my legal fees and fund a discreet grant to a nonprofit supporting workers facing coercive workplace dynamics. The last piece was the condo. Marcus's attorney looked tired. "He won't fight the post-nup clause," he said softly. "He asks only for a reasonable timeline to relocate." Jillian nodded. 30 days, she said. "No guests from Northline, no overnights by the subject of the investigation, ever." The judge coughed into a smile. "We signed a memorandum of understanding contingent on the investigation's findings. No confetti, just pens." Veronica slipped out first, face unreadable, future narrowed to a corridor. Northline's counsel shook Jillian's hand like respect. Marcus lingered. He looked at me and mouthed, "Thank you," which is confusing geometry. Gratitude aiming at the person you broke. 2 weeks later, the independent report landed. It used verbs. It confirmed policy breach, undisclosed relationship, misuse of security resources, and retaliation risk. Veronica resigned to pursue opportunities. Marcus's bonus was clawed back. His title was rescinded. HR announced role transitions. The internal apology circulated. Douglas Carr signed his name like a closing argument. We filed the condo transfer per the post-nup, recorded quietly, cordial with the clerk. I changed the locks and labeled boxes with a calm I didn't recognize as mine. Settlement done, not peace but structure. Jillian exhaled. "Verdict without a trial," she said. "My favorite genre. Harper keeps the condo, Marcus forfeits bonus, Northline updates policy, Veronica resigns. I lost a husband and found a backbone with compound interest. After the signatures and the locksmith and the last polite text about picking up cufflinks, quiet settled like snowfall, soft, decisive, hiding dents until sunlight. I turned the second bedroom into a studio, white table, pegboard, plants that thrive on indirect belief. I reclaimed my Thursday ritual as mine, not ours. Cheap wine, calendar triage for one, and a playlist that doesn't apologize. Aunt Lila brought me a brass plaque for the bookshelf. Measure twice, live true, screwed in, crooked on purpose. A private joke about imperfection and choice. Tasha wired shelves, bolted the heavy things to the wall, and made me promise to stop calling my caution paranoia. "Caution is a railing," she said. "Paranoia is a haunted house. Build railings." We started a checklist for friends in the splash zone. Save receipts, export chats, memorize policy, ask who benefits, never sign for optics. Work became air again. My creative director left me alone to lead. I hit a campaign clean and then another. Clients started asking for Harper's eye, Harper's read, Harper's calm. That last word surprised me. Calm used to be a costume. Now it felt like floor. The Studio AS first independent client came from an unlikely door. A Northline board member, S spouse who wanted a rebrand for the foundation she ran. "You navigate mess without making more," she said. "We could use that." I wrote a scope that didn't discount my worth and delivered on it like a promise to the version of me who stayed up counting elevator frames. Therapy taught me how to carry a heart and a briefcase without dropping either. We drew the map of my triggers. Clean glass rooms, half-drawn blinds, the smell of lemon wipes, and taught my body not to assume ambush when somebody closes a door. My therapist said, "Forgiveness is a chair at a table you're allowed to move. Some days I slide it closer, some days I leave it across the room." I learned that anger can be a boundary, not a home. Marcus moved into a sublet with furniture that looks like paperwork. He sent 2 long letters through counsel, apologies that tried to be receipts. I read them on a Sunday, folded them twice, and put them in a folder labeled after. He asked later for a coffee without lawyers. I declined and didn't write a brave caption. Veronica disappeared into a LinkedIn sabbatical full of verbs that dodged nouns. The junior analyst who whispered truth found a new team under a manager who copies audit on enthusiasm. The mentee who wrote the corroboration found her voice louder, steadier. We had tea. I started a microgrant with the settlement's attorney fee reimbursement. Small checks for people caught between love and policy vouchers, for consults with lawyers like Jillian, stipends for PIs like Owen, therapy sessions, Uber rides to a cousin's couch. We called it STARE, support, triage, action, integrity, receipts, because acronyms help committees, and because sometimes a staircase is what you need more than a door. The condo became mine the way a word becomes yours when you say it every morning. I changed bulbs, painted trim, learned the hum of the dishwasher's honest cycle. I kept the thrifted table and bought new chairs. I threw out the laminated card that said "Don't post," kept the one in my head that says "Don't lie." I stopped checking reflections for ambush and started checking myself for softness. It returned gradually, like a neighborhood after winter. On the anniversary of the town hall, I stood at the window where the city does its consistent miracle and spoke out loud, a practice my therapist calls anchoring. I said my name. I said my work. I said my rules. I said my future. The room held. The view remained rented. The leverage was mine. People ask if I'd take Marcus back if he became a better man. I say that's the wrong architecture. Becoming better is not a key to my door. It's a key to his. He can unlock his next life. I am living mine, measured and true. So when someone asks if a promotion can replace a person, I say, only if you let it. Would you forgive or take it to HR in court? Comment, forgive, or prosecute. Subscribe for more stories.